SLT එක්ක ස්පීඩ් අප් වෙන්න. සුපර් ඩීල්ස් අත්විඳින්න. SLT ස්පීඩ් අප් සුපර් ඩීල්ස් සැප්තැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි.
Tonight, breaking silence. President speaks up on his stance, says he is ready to support Gotabaya but a big no to contesting under his party symbol. Winning recipe. Gotabaya Rajapaksa explains the key ingredients to an efficient system of governance.
You can have lot of dreams and ideas, but unless you are able to execute them, there is no meaning in them.
Another hat in the ring. Former commander of the army, General Mahesh Senanayake, joins the presidential race. A rebel and a charismatic leader. What Churchill was to the UK then is Sri Lanka's need now. Lord Naseby speaks at Hyde Park.
How do we find a leader that will drive and steer Sri Lanka?
The UK in its hour of need discovered Mr. Churchill, who'd been a bit of a rebel as a politician.
All this and much more coming up on First at 9 this Sunday, the 29th of September 2019.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා ෆෑනස් වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ ෆෑනස් ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti marks cream.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 and AdaDerana 24 Sri Lanka's news channel. I'm Katrina Chang. On your top story tonight, leader of the SLFP, President Maithripala Sirisena, finally broke his silence on the much disputed issue of the symbol of the proposed SLFP-SLPP alliance. Addressing the SLFP Kurunegala District Convention today, the head of state made it very clear that although his faction is ready to support SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa in the election, the two sides cannot agree to contest under the flower bud symbol. President Sirisena had voiced his opinion during the discussions he held with SLPP leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and other prominent members yesterday. The Kurunegala District Convention of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party was held in Hettipola today under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena.
අපේ ආදරණීය නායකයාට ශ්‍රී ලංකා අන්දාස් පක්ෂයේ ගරු සභාපතිතුමන්ට මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන මැතිතුමන්ට අතුගල්පුර ප්‍රගතිශීලී ජනතාවට රනිල්ගේ සහ මගේ ගැටුම පුද්ගලික ගැටුමක් නෙවෙයි.
The dispute between Ranil and me was never a personal one. It is a dispute based on political principles, vision and the fight between good and bad. This is why I attempted to oust Ranil and appoint Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister, and I dissolved the Parliament and Cabinet of Ministers. No leader in any country has issued 5 Gazette notifications before. This was the result of the dispute I had with Ranil Wickremesinghe and his corrupt and treacherous political path. I established a government with Mahinda Rajapaksa, but they weren't able to secure the support of 113 parliamentarians, and that wasn't my fault. It's not because of the SLPP that Mahinda Rajapaksa is currently the opposition leader. He is there because of the letter handed over to the Speaker by UPFA and SLFP parliamentarians confirming his SLFP membership. Why am I saying all of this? It is no secret that the SLFP and SLPP have been having discussions in the past months on forming an alliance. Myself, Mahinda Rajapaksa, Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa held discussions at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. I informed them of the stance of our working committee, parliamentary group, Pradeshya Sabha councillors as well as village-level SLFP supporters. I told them that we can vote for Gotabaya Rajapaksa as per an agreement based on a national program, but we cannot possibly vote for the flower bud symbol. I told them that we could join hands only if they agreed to contest under a common symbol. Why did I talk about all the help I gave them in Parliament? By appointing him, the opposition leader and so on. The SLPP must be flexible towards our proposals in forming an alliance, as it was we who have helped them all this time.
පොහොට්ටුවේ නම්‍යශීලී භාවයක් තිබිය යුතුයි සන්ධානයක් හදනවා නම්
කිස කෙස යනවාද විසඳුම දින 6න් පුරාණයේ පටන් භාවිතා කරන ඉපැරණි ශාකසාර වට්ටෝරුවකට අනුව නිපදවන ගානීෂා hair growth oil සියලුම ෆාමසි සහ වෙළඳ සැල් වලින්. Former Defence Secretary and SLPP presidential hopeful Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that the winning recipe for a change in the government system requires commitment, selecting the right people for the job and execution.
Presidential hopeful was speaking at a symposium last evening where he was questioned on a number of topics, including his national policy and assistance towards research and development in the country. A symposium titled Taking Off Sri Lanka to an Era of Sustainable Development was held yesterday under the auspices of opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and presidential hopeful Gotabaya Rajapaksa in Colombo yesterday. The event saw the participation of academics and experts in the field of commerce, science, medicine, law and engineering.
I have been engaging in politics for 50 years, but this is the first time such a platform was given to party leaders and presidential candidates to listen to what academics and professionals have to say. There are times when politicians think they know everything and create a big mess. We need to change this situation, and therefore it is important that academics and politicians are directly involved in the political process.
Participants were given the opportunity to pose their questions to the SLPP's presidential candidate at the event.
We want to make use of our findings for economic development of our country. That doesn't happen.
I think the problem is we have not linked private sector where it can be produced to the universities due to various reasons. Now, if you take other countries, once you research and find something, then it's given to the private sector to develop that product, make it a commercial thing. Everything cannot be given to the government. We have to link the universities and the production of facilities.
I'd like to know the definition of the national policy. Two regimes are coming, these policies should not be changed.
I have fulfilled the responsibilities which were given to me all the time. During President Mahinda Rajapaksa's first term, we eradicated the terrorism which was there for 30 years. What is important is the commitment and being able to select the correct team and motivate them to do that. You can have a lot of dreams and ideas, but unless you are able to execute them, there's no meaning in that. By doing that, I think we can change the system.
Meanwhile, the Lanka Samaja Party held a convention today with the participation of opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa. During the event, a pledge of support to Gotabaya Rajapaksa was handed over to the candidate. Political and international affairs analyst Mohan Samaranayake urges the public to make a wise decision while electing the next leader of Sri Lanka by keeping in mind of the need to safeguard independence and territorial integrity of the nation and its economic freedom and prosperity. He expressed these views during a conference by Viatmaga organization yesterday.
The Kurunegala District Conference of the Viatmaga organization was held yesterday with the participation of a number of professionals, intellectuals and public representatives.
Forthcoming presidential election is a crucial moment in the history of this country. That is because this nation is threatened by losing the independence, fragmentation of the country, and the country becoming battleground of world hegemonic powers. Therefore, people have to take an independent, wise decision at the forthcoming presidential election. The decision must be to safeguard independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, economic freedom and economic prosperity.
If you look at Sri Lanka today, from the national security angle or economy angle or any other angle, we can see that Sri Lanka has hit the rock bottom. So in order to salvage the sinking ship, I think a person like Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa should come. He is a man who loves this country. He is the man who feels for the people of this country, and he is a man who loves the future generation. Under his leadership, I am sure Sri Lanka will be able to prosper.
Presidential contender of the United National Party Sajith Premadasa says that he is ready to serve the country by being the much-needed full-time public servant the people need. Speaking in another event in Alpita today, Minister Premadasa added that he would like his legacy to remember him as the most honourable and beneficial leader in the country's history.
The United National Party's Benthara Alpitiya electorate meeting was held at the area party office of Minister Gayantha Karunatilaka and was presided over by the party's presidential candidate, Minister Sajith Premadasa.
I don't have any fake certificates. I'm a very clean individual. When I walk on the streets after retirement, I want people to point at me and say, there goes the man who did more than anyone else for the country. That is the respect and legacy I seek. So I request the people of Alpitia to give Sajid Premadasa this opportunity. I knew when I should enter the contest and I know when to go. I promise you a strong motherland.
Meanwhile, the UNP candidate also spoke at a UNP meeting at the Kulunava electorate.
I would like to assure you that I will prioritize the welfare of our war heroes, members of the tri-forces and the police as well as all in the defense sector. We will empower you to fulfill your duties of safeguarding the country with pride. I am ready to work as a full-time public servant.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe called on civil society members to come together in securing the win for United National Front presidential candidate, Minister Sajid Premadasa. The Premier expressed these views during a discussion held with civil society activists at Temple Trees today.
We must pass the new constitution. This is why the current government must continue in the next few years to achieve this goal. We hope to secure the win in both presidential and parliamentary elections through Deputy Leader of the party, UNP presidential candidate Sajid Premadasa. We want to focus on our work with the support of a majority, things we couldn't do as a minority. Do you want to go back to the culture of white vans, religious extremism and communal violence? I urge all members of the civil society to come together to secure the win for our presidential candidate.
Presidential candidate of the National People's Power Movement, Anurakumara Dissanayake, said that he is confident that his party's political alliance will be able to produce the most suitable leader for the country. He expressed these views while addressing an event held in Matra yesterday.
A public gathering was organised at the University of Ruhuna under the patronage of presidential candidate of National People's Power, Anurakumara Dissanayake, yesterday.
All political supporters, including those from the UMP and SLFP, no longer expect their leaders to abolish the executive presidency. This is why we are giving you the guarantee that Anurakumara Dissanayake will be the leader to finally bury this executive presidential system once and for all. People have been asking me if we can secure a win in the presidential election. I say absolutely, we do have a chance. If we want to elect a new leader for the country, we can. If we want to elect a family leader, we could do that as well. If we want to elect someone who never sleeps, I'm sure we can do that too. But then again, we don't necessarily need to be sleep deprived to govern the country. If you want a leader to govern this country properly, that leader can only come from the National People's Power.
Former commander of Sri Lanka Army Mahesh Senanayake entered into Sri Lanka's presidential race as its newest contender today. The former army chief will be representing the National People's Movement, a collective of civil societies and organizations, as an independent presidential candidate.
The National People's Movement, a collective of civil societies and organizations, announced its presidential candidate at its special event held at the Sugatadasa Indoor Stadium today. Retired General Mahesh Senanayake has been selected as the newest name in the country's already heated presidential race.
This was a collective decision. All I want to do is build this country together with you and not to become a president as a personal choice. The time has come to change our out-of-date constitution. I have experts on the subject gathered around me to fulfill this task, and there is no need to be afraid to take decisions. There is a need to change the out-of-date legal system and framework of the country. This group will be able to ensure one law for all within the nation. Reconciliation is imperative to ensure national security, which cannot be achieved through party politics. It can only be achieved by an independent leader. Our security forces, including the Sri Lanka police, are quite strong. Unfortunately, the political culture within Sri Lanka has become an obstacle for security officials who are obstructed from engaging in their duties. I myself am a witness to it. Despite any life threats and risks I might face, I am here to fulfill your expectations as the temporary and independent leader of this movement.
Former Deputy Speaker of the United Kingdom's House of Commons, Lord Naseby, believes that Sri Lanka's next leader should be someone who understands the complexities of national security in Sri Lanka's crucial time of need. akin to how Winston Churchill steadied the ship through the UK's darkest hour. Speaking with Devariva Moatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 during his visit to Sri Lanka, he added that effective leadership is an absolute essential at a time that Sri Lanka stands at the crossroads of the world. We will be bringing the program right into your living room on TV Derana at 11 p.m. tonight. Former Deputy Speaker of the United Kingdom's House of Commons, Lord Naseby, believes that Sri Lanka's next leader should be someone who understands the complexities of national security in Sri Lanka's crucial time of need, akin to how Winston Churchill steadied the ship through the UK's darkest hour. Speaking with Devariva Moatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 during his visit to Sri Lanka, he added that effective leadership is an absolute essential at a time that Sri Lanka stands at the crossroads of the world. We will be bringing the program right into your living room on TV Derana at 11 p.m. tonight.
All in Sri Lanka, everyone came together in shock when innocent Easter worshippers were targeted.
So we do have a problem. We do put resources into intelligence so that the police and the unit that is well briefed, well financed, they have to make the decision who has to be watched and who isn't being watched. And you have to face up to that requirement. I'm not totally confident that that's happening in Sri Lanka. It was happening when the war was going on, and I may be wrong, but it doesn't seem to me it's happening in the depth that it was before. And you have to have that, otherwise it'll happen again, because the whole world's facing up to the difficulties caused by ISIS and ISIL and some of these extraordinarily violent groups that there are around.
We are talking about the importance of national security, the importance of hub status, developing Sri Lanka to be a key destination in the world, in the shipping route. How do we find a leader that will drive and steer Sri Lanka towards this goal?
Well, it's strange, isn't it? The UK in its hour of need discovered Mr. Churchill, who'd been a bit of a rebel when he started life as a politician. And all of a sudden, when we faced our real day of doomsday, Mr. Churchill appears, supported by Mr. Attlee. So they had a team there of a charismatic man at the top and a really good, effective, quasi-civil servant doing the implementation. And you achieved that in the war period, the final stages of it. That was really good. And you're right, you are on the crossroads of the world. This country itself has to show leadership, because leadership is what creates growth and a stable economy and a society that people are comfortable in. And it needs also a plea to the outside world to show understanding of the challenges, probably the unique challenges that Sri Lanka has faced over a very long period of time.
We will now go into a short commercial break, but make sure you stay tuned for more news right after that. UN Resident Coordinator for Sri Lanka, Hannah Singer, says that Sri Lanka's tourism industry should market the country as a sustainable destination. Speaking at the annual International Tourism Leaders Summit and Tourism Research Conference yesterday, she highlighted the need for strong partnerships with relevant stakeholders to create policies and measures that will push for sustainability in the sector.
The 5th Annual International Tourism Leaders Summit and Tourism Research Conference was worked off in Colombo yesterday under the theme A Way Forward for Sustainable Tourism Development, Tourism and Jobs, A Better Future for All. The event was held under the auspices of Minister of Tourism Development, Wildlife and Christian Religious Affairs, John Amaratunga.
We can no longer consider sustainable tourism offerings as a choice. The tourism sector as a whole needs to focus marketing Sri Lanka as not only a desirable destination, but also differentiating it as a sustainable destination in one of the most competitive global sectors. Harnessing of tourism positive contribution to sustainable development and the mitigating sector adverse effects call for a strong partnership and decisive action by all the tourism stakeholders. Young people are the present, but they are also the future. Developing plans and policies without them is a futile exercise. Here in Sri Lanka, you have access to 4.4 million young people. These young people need to be provided with gainful employment, and their contributions to this sector will be immense.
Market analysts forecast weak market activity at the Colombo Bourse during the week while adopting a wait-and-see approach over the course of next week. The ASPI and the S&P SL 20 lost 0.38% and 0.07% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 332 million rupees. We now have Dimantha Matthews from First Capital Holdings with your market expectations.
In the bond market, with the liquidity level continuing to remain tight, we expect the bond yields to remain broadly flat, while the yields may shift downwards as liquidity levels improve. Activity levels are likely to remain weak, with most investors adopting a wait-and-see approach. In the case of the stock market, we expect things to remain on the slower slide till the nominations for the presidential elections come out, which are due next week, following which a pickup in the market activity is likely on speculation. For next week, we expect activity levels to remain similar to the last week, with some participation from bargain hunters on selected counters.
We will have news from the other side of the world right after this commercial break. Stay tuned. The government of London said that it had referred Prime Minister Boris Johnson to Britain's police watchdog for potential investigation of allegations of misconduct involving a US businesswoman while he was mayor of London. The matter has been referred to the police watchdog because Johnson was head of the mayor's office for policing and crime, a role equivalent to a police commissioner during his 2008 to 2016 term as mayor.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson's woes seems to be deepening with possible criminal charges of misconduct during his stint as London mayor hanging over him as he arrived amidst much heckling at his first Conservative Party conference as the UK Prime Minister. Under the referral by the Government of London, the police watchdog will try to determine whether there are grounds for a full investigation that could lead to criminal charges of misconduct in public office. Parliament, which does not usually sit during the autumn political party conferences, convened again on Wednesday after the Supreme Court ruled that Johnson's decision to suspend it for a longer period than usual was unlawful. Johnson has vowed to take Britain out of the European Union by 31st October. British opposition parties are discussing tabling a vote of no confidence in Johnson as early as next week over his handling of Brexit, according to the Telegraph newspaper.
Hong Kong police today fired a water cannon with blue water at protesters who had gathered outside of Government House to disperse them. Hundreds of black-clad protesters protecting themselves with umbrellas confronted police. Some hurled petrol bombs into security barriers surrounding the building. The protest today followed another night of violent clashes with police after a few weeks of pro-democracy unrest in the Chinese-ruled city. Protests were sparked in June by planned legislation since withdrawn that would have allowed the extradition of suspected criminals to mainland China. But they have since expanded into a broader pro-democracy movement. More protests are planned in the run-up to the China's 1st October National Day, marking the 70th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic. In rugby news, Wales held on to a well-deserved win over Pool D rivals Australia, finishing up with a 29-25 victory at the Tokyo Stadium this afternoon. Wales took the lead just 35 seconds into the game with a drop goal from Dan Biggar, and from there on, tries from Headley Parkes and Gareth Davis took them into an 18-point lead going into the second half. A Wallabies onslaught in the second half saw some pressure on the Welsh team, but they managed to hold off the offensive and complete a significant victory. Sri Lanka's Chamari Atapattu set 2 records today as she became the first Sri Lankan woman to score 100 in T20 internationals and the only women's team captain to reach the triple figures during a chase. Chamari Atapattu set the record during Sri Lanka women encounter against Australia at the North Sydney Oval. Opener Atapattu scored 113 runs off 66 balls, including 12 boundaries and 6 sixers. Despite Atapattu's record-breaking century, Sri Lanka women suffered a 41-run loss to Australia women in the first T20 international of the 3-match series. And with that, we conclude this edition of First at 9. Thanks for joining us and have a pleasant day.